Welcome to the Complete Story series, where I take trade paperbacks and single issues and I break them down into digestible bites to help you understand. Then I read them dramatically back to you in a dramatic fashion like it's a motion movie. Guys, the Spider-Man game is out, and to celebrate, we're doing Spider-Man content right here on Comicstorian the entire weekend. Today is going to be the origins of Spider-Man Noir, a book that a lot of you have requested and I haven't done for a very long time. And I do my old, really cool 1930s old-timey accent for it. But to further celebrate this whole thing, what we're doing, guys, is celebrating over on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/eligiblemonster. If you come on over and join us during, literally right now when this video is live, you'll find us playing the Spider-Man game. And every hour, we're giving away Spider-Man merchandise, from comic books to toys to video games. You can also engage in the comments down below, and we're giving away stuff to some YouTube people as well. Watch our video earlier in the week for more information on that. But if you're just watching this for Spider-Man Noir, let's get to that origin, shall we? New York City, January 1933. The police rush into the office of J. Jonah Jameson of the Daily Bugle after getting a report that Jonah was shot. As the police push their way through, they kick open the door with their guns drawn to see Jonah dead in his chair after being shot to death. The man responsible, the Spider-Man, dressed in all black, sits there with his gun looking at the officers. One of the officers shouts that that's him. He shot Jameson! Spider-Man quickly webs up one of the officers and jumps out the window. But as another runs towards the window, he begins to fire. One of the bullets grazes the side of Spider-Man's arm, but ultimately, he manages to get away. 3 weeks prior, there was no Spider-Man. No one even had an idea about what was to come over the city. Down below at Riverside Drive, Daily Bugle reporter Ben Urich arrives to take shots of the squatters that have built up a tiny little shantytown along the Hudson. Jonah told him to get the pictures of the broken men and the helpless women, the snot-nosed kids in rags, the pictures that'll make people weep. Urich asks one of the squatters if he could take a picture, and the man asks, what is he representing? Urich tells him the Bugle. So the man opens up his coat, showing newspaper strapped to him for heat, stating that the Bugle's got some good paper. Front pages on his chest, sports pages in his shoes. He saved the financial section to wipe his keister. As the man laughs, Urich notices a woman standing on a soapbox and a group of people around her. He asks what's going on over there. The woman says that that's May Parker, rousing the comrades again, letting the ruling classes tremble. The proletarians have nothing to lose but the chains. Urich walks over thinking that he's heard of her, but this is the first time that he's seen her in person. May tells the people how the government promised their jobs were secure, but more than 13 million of them are out of work now. The only thing the Republicans and the Democrats are discussing is the most efficient way to turn their sweat and blood into profit. As May goes on, a well-dressed man from the crowd says, "Get off your soapbox, Grandma." That man, Fancy Dan, and two with him are the enforcers, the mobster Goblin's muscle. Dan tells May that if she doesn't like things here in America, she should get on a boat and go join her comrades in Russia. May says the last time that she checked, the Constitution of this country protected her right to freedom of speech. The man then tells the larger man with him, Ox, to go ahead and help the old woman down. However, May's nephew Peter jumped in front of him shouting, "If you lay a finger on my aunt!" Before Peter could get another word out, Ox gut punches Peter, telling him, "It's way past your bedtime, kid." May shouts to let him go, but the other enforcer, Montana, cracks his whip, wrapping May up. Just then, Urich's voice tells the three of them, "Say cheese." And there's a flash of light. Dan looks over, stating, "Would you look at that? Ben Urich poking his nose in the muck as usual." Ox grabs Urich by the jacket, telling him, "I'll just smash up your camera of yours." And Dan stops him, telling him, "Urich is off limits. You know that." After Ox lets him go, Dan tells Urich, "You better be careful. You're pushing your luck." As the three leave, Urich helps Peter up, asking if he's okay, and Peter mumbles, telling him, "Yeah, fine." And May tells Urich, "Thanks for helping." Urich tells them both that they're very welcome. His car is just down the way. Please allow him to give them a ride home. A short while later, over at the Bowery Welfare Center, Urich asks if this is the hotbed of the revolution. And May says that it's what the sign says, a welfare center. They give the homeless a hot meal and a place to come out of the cold. Urich laughs, telling him, "Seems like a little too much socialism for some people." Peter points to the fence where some of the things are stored, stating, "We had to put those things up after my uncle was killed by Goblin's mobster." May tells him that they don't know if it was Goblin's men who did it. And Peter says, "I know it." Once May leaves, Peter shouts, "Damn it! Why do these gangsters gotta come after us? It's the system that we're attacking. The corrupted banks, the businesses, the politicians." Urich listens to Peter go on and thinks to himself that he should just get in the car, he should drive away. But there's something about this kid's sheer stubborn, righteous anger. Maybe he wanted to test him, to show him the brutal reality of the world, to watch that light in his eyes die out. After another short drive, Urich takes Peter down an alleyway, stating that he really hopes that he's not a prohibitionist, because he's about to enter the hottest speakeasy in town. Welcome to the Black Cat. The doors swing open and inside is an underground bar. Black Cat's owner, Felicia Hardy, asks Ulrich if he's babysitting now. Who's the kid? Ulrich tells her that he's Peter Parker. Don't mind the bruises. He got into an argument with Ox. Peter, meet the owner of this fine establishment, as well as the only woman that I've ever asked to marry me, which, God knows why, she turned me down. Felicia calls out to one of the waitresses stating to clear out Ulrich's table and get him a drink. Ulrich laughs, telling them to make it a whiskey, double on the rocks, and a soda for the kid. Peter says that he'll take a whiskey, and Felicia stares, asking, are you old enough to be drinking? Peter tells her, I'll show you my birth certificate when you show me your liquor license. Felicia smiles, telling him that the kid's got a mouth on him, and Ulrich tells her he gets it from his aunt. Once the two sit, Peter asks, why did the Goblin's thugs back off when you showed up? They said that you were off limits. Ulrich says, power of the press, I'm guessing. But that's why I brought you here, by the way you and your aunt are talking. But Peter cuts him off, telling him, we should keep our mouths shut? Aunt May believes in something, and I believe in it. Ulrich stops him. That's all good and all. Believe that if we all became good little socialists and worked toward the greater good, that it'll be all sunshine and roses. That's a hell of a dream, but take a good look. This is reality, kid. The guy wrestling with the brunette, that's Jimmy Strider, mayor of New York. And that dame is not his wife. To his left is the chief detective, Rian, from the Vice Squad. The creep he's schmoozing? That's Emilio Alcuno, runs half the brothels in New York. Then there's Aldorfus Crane, the industrialist, and your Uncle Ben helped organize demonstrations that closed 3 of Crane's sweatshops last year. And the one in the center of it all, that's Norman Osborn, the Goblin. You want to know why the Goblin is after you? The truth is, the Goblin doesn't give a damn about you or anyone else. He's freelance and he works for whoever is the highest bidder. They use him because it wouldn't look good to have the police suppressing freedom of speech. Peter then asks, so you're saying that the mayor used the Goblin to kill Uncle Ben? And Ulrich tells him, it was probably Alcuna who made the deal, and Crane most likely put up the fee. Rian probably made sure the cops were looking the other way, and the mayor just sits back taking a percentage. It's a tangled web that they weave. Peter then asks, why do they call him the Goblin? And Ulrich tells him, no one really knows. Likely because his enforcers that he chose came from every broken circus freak show that he could find. The classy man with the monkey, that's Craven. He was an animal trainer. The bald one's Vulture. He's a geek. The Goblin found him caged up, biting the heads off living chickens. Just then, Fancy Dan walks up to Ulrich's table, telling them, look what the cat dragged in. Behind him, Norman walks up, telling him, good evening, Ulrich. And Parker, is it? Your uncle was Ben Parker, the agitator? Please accept my deepest consolidations for the unfortunate death. Ben was torn apart by, what was it? A pack of dogs? Peter grits his teeth, stating, my uncle was murdered by a low-life scum, and you are not fit to even say his name. Peter then takes his glass and throws it at Norman, but the Vulture opens his mouth and hisses. So Norman holds it back, telling him, not here. Norman wipes his face off, telling Ulrich, you better teach your young friend some manners. He is your friend, right? Ulrich gets up, telling him, oh yes, he's my friend. Come on, Peter. We've overstayed our welcome here. A few moments later, the bouncer throws Peter out, and Felicia tells Ulrich, you know the rules. Don't bring your squabbles into the Black Cat. The kid can come back when he's grown up. As the door slams shut, Ulrich says, what you just did in there was the stupidest single thing that I have ever witnessed. Do you realize what you... But Peter stops him and asks, what? And Ulrich stops. He fights back the urge to put Peter down himself, but he says, it's nothing, I'll take you home now. Peter tells him, I got the message. You wanted me to see what was going on in here, and it can't be fought against. But I will never close my eyes and run away. Ulrich then asks, you want to do something? Really make a difference? Then a short while later at J. Jonah Jameson's office, Jonah tells Peter, sit down. Ulrich has told me that you're a good kid. Said you're an orphan. Lost your uncle too. Ben Parker was a fine man. A little red around the gills for my liking, but still. So you want to study what? Science? But you can't afford college? Well, you can make do with a job here in the meantime. Peter tries to say no, but Jonah asks him, did you know that there's a married couple living under the bridge in Central Park because they have nowhere else to go? There's children starving in the middle of the richest nation that has ever existed. There's a million sob stories out there, and none of them are special until we make it special. Ulrich has a unique talent. He knows how to put words and pictures together. A picture can be worth 10,000 words, and it's coming from a man who makes a career on words. As Jonah pushes the two of them out of his office, Peter tells him, I don't really know what to do. And Ulrich stops him, telling him, don't worry, you just gotta be better than the guy setting up the gear. You're not a photographer. Not yet, at least. After all, as Ulrich went to take out his pictures, Peter was there to help set up the lights and everything else, and he got a chance to see what really happens out there. The poor living on the streets, the families with 5 or more children living in a single room, the man who hung himself so he wouldn't have to pay the Goblin and leave his wife alone. However, the man was wrong. He still had a debt, and now his wife would have to pay. After that, Peter opened up. He really opened up. As Ulrich and Peter sit in a diner, Peter looks at his coffee, stating that widow, she knew who to blame. Everyone knows what the goblin is doing, but everyone is too scared to do anything. No one sees or hears anything. One day, someone has to talk. It's all it's gonna take. Just 1 or 2 people with the guts to tell the truth, and Goblin will be finished. Peter went on. That night that my uncle died, it was me who found him. There were rope marks. He was tied up so they couldn't fight back, and after they beat him, they set the wild dogs on him and tore him apart. Urge listens, but this is old news to him. The only thing that he didn't know was that Peter was the one who found the mutilated body. Later that night, Ben heads home, still thinking to himself that he had it bad, but Peter, he's known loss his entire life. The truth is, Peter has every reason to be bitter at the world. Urge opens the drawer to his desk, taking out a small bag, and he begins to heat up a spoon. He then takes out a needle, sucks up the liquid, and injects it into his arm. He leans back as the heroin goes through him, telling himself, Peter is wrong about one thing. It wasn't the dogs that tore Uncle Ben apart. It was that freak vulture. After being treated like an animal for so long, something in Adrian Toombs just snapped. He developed a taste for human meat. And how would he know Ben Parker's body was cannibalized? Because God help him, he was there, and he watched it all. As the weeks pass by while taking pictures of a burning building, Urge begins to realize something. Peter's passion for justice just started to get to him. He began to feel anger when they would report on things that they knew were not an accident. This building did just burst into flames, but this was the owner cashing in on insurance money. While Urge begins to develop photos, Peter watches Urge, telling him that he's not even shocked that this is happening anymore. Urge sighs, telling him that he's too tired. You can't spend your life being disgusted and outraged. It'll just make you go crazy. Whether or not today's fire was an accident or not, there's nothing that they can prove. Peter takes a closer look at one of the photos, telling him that the proof is right here. Fancy Dan is in one of the photos that we took. We can just take this to the cops and get an investigation going. Urge tells him that there's no point. Everyone in the city gets a cut. Cops, insurance investigators, everyone. And it doesn't stop there. It goes all the way to the top. There's no one who could even talk that would have any power to do anything. Peter then says that he knows his Uncle Ben was a pilot in the Great War. He said that there was no reason to be fighting. No great cause. It was a war or markets. The old colonial empires carved up the new world. They sent out boys by the millions to die, all to safeguard their profits. He also said that if those in power can't be trusted, it's the responsibility of the people to remove them. Urge begins taking down the photos, telling Peter that that's a nice speech and all, but while they're waiting for the revolution, maybe they could get these pictures over to the Bugle. Peter grabs the envelope, telling him, yeah, right. The public must have its daily dose of misery, huh? As he leaves, Urge looks back at the photo with Fancy Dan, excluding it from the ones given to Peter. Later at Urge's apartment, Peter runs in stating that they made the late edition. Isn't that great? Ben sits in his chair not responding, and as Peter looks down, he sees the heroin needle. Just then, Ben's phone rings, and since Ben can't respond, Peter picks it up, asking, hello? The voice on the other line says, is that you, Spider? It's the Fly, and I got a hot one for you. The action's going off at 1 o'clock in the a.m. at Rooney's Import Warehouse at Pier 57. Goblin's goons are picking up a shipment of antiques that went awry. It's going to be the usual terms. 40 clams if you use it or not, gotta blow. Peter hangs up the phone, stating, Spider, what was Urge up to? At 1 o'clock at the pier, Montana looks at one of the statues of the Spider God and asks why the hell did Goblin want this junk? Fancy Dan tells him it's for his personal collection. He's got a thing for the voodoo mumbo jumbo and all that weird stuff. The Bugle put out an article about this one though, said anyone who touches it dies from a curse. Craven then says, that's enough talking. Get the statues loaded. Fancy Dan, Ox, and Montana begin to lift the crate up, and as Fancy takes a step back, he slips, dropping the crate. The Spider God's statue inside cracks, and from inside, a swarm of spiders swarm out covering him. He screams, get him off! Get him off! They're biting me! And while this happens, Peter is watching from the rafters. Craven grabs a hose to wash Dan off, but when Montana takes a closer look, he says that he's dead. Those spiders killed Dan! While this is all happening, Peter notices one of the spiders crawled up and bit him on the hand. He tells himself not to scream, and the spider bites again. Peter struggles to keep his scream quiet, but then something happens. Everything around him begins to fade, and then the Spider God appears before him. The Spider God asks, why did you tremble so? Our bites only bring death to those of evil intent. For you, there will be a greater torment. The curse of power. Peter blacks out after hearing those words, and a short while later he finds himself opening his eyes, looking up, finding himself upside down. He says, oh God, and when he moves, he feels himself covered in the spider's web. He pulls the webbing off and he climbs up, and then he senses something. A few moments later, he jumps off the ledge and easily moves from beam to beam until he lands on the floor. He looks back up at the height that he just came from, and then at his hand stating, well, I'll be damned. The next morning, Urge grabs his things and heads over to Osborne Enterprises. It wasn't hard to find because the piece of garbage Goblin thinks he's untouchable. Urge walks up to the doors, and one of the guards tells Urge that he will be seen in 5 minutes. Next time, make a goddamn appointment. Urich waits the time, and as he walks into Norman's office, he looks at all of the taxidermied animals, and Norman asks, "What do you want? I pay you to stay out of my hair and not show up looking like a hobo. It's bad for the image." Urich tells him that he's going to assume that they heard about the fire the other night. And Norman tells him that yes, they did. Some drunk drops a cigarette and Urich holds up the photo of Fancy Dan, telling him, "Just in case you didn't see, there's a clear shot of Fancy Dan at the scene." Norman laughs, telling him, "Fancy Dan no longer works for me, just so you know. And you're going to need better plans if you want to blackmail me." Urich then says, "I got plenty to take you down in your entire freak show." Norman looks at the photo again, telling him, "This is true. I'm a man that accepts facts over ideals. I will buy the snapshot this time. I know a man like you has needs, but you should take care not to push too far." Montana hands Urich a wad of cash, stating, "There's 50 skins to keep you snowed up for Christmas." A scram. Just then there's a loud crash, and a man in black jumps through Norman's window, kicking Craven to the ground. The man in black moves with such agility, taking everyone before stopping in front of Norman's desk. The man then tells Norman, "I'm here to give you a message. It all stops here. The extortion, the drugs, the prostitution, the protection rackets, all of it." Norman laughs, telling Montana to shoot, but as Montana takes out his gun, the man shoots out a web from his wrist, pinning that man down. He then grabs Norman, lifts him out of his chair, and Norman asks, "What are you gonna do? Beat me up? Arrest me? The only way to stop me would be to kill me. Can you do that?" The man tries to say something, but his eyes wander, and he notices Urich's photo, and then he stares directly at Urich. Urich runs out of the building and into the streets, but before he can get far, the man in black jumps in front of him. The man then grabs Urich by the jacket, shouting, "How could you? How could you be working for Goblin and taking his filthy money? You're drunk and a junkie, and he bought you. He bought you like a dog." The man lets go, stating, "That voice, Peter? Wait, let me explain." Peter turns and makes his escape, telling him, "Just stay away from me. I never want to see your lying face again." As Peter runs down the alley, Norman and his goons run up shooting. However, Peter effortlessly dodges the bullets and jumps up the walls and under the rooftops. Once the firing stops, Norman looks at Urich, telling him, "You still here? Use those connections of yours to find out who that lunatic in the mask is and earn yourself a nice bonus." Urich gets up grabbing the money that he was given, and he throws it, telling him that he doesn't work for him anymore. He doesn't want his money. This thing that they have is finished. He picks up his hat and he begins to walk off. And Norman says, "Now that sounds like a man with nothing to lose. A man with nothing to lose is very, very dangerous." Montana then asks if he should pop it, and Norman says, "Not yet. We need to know where he's keeping those files. Urich may think that he has the upper hand, but the Goblin always gets 2 steps ahead." Later that night, Urich pours himself a glass, telling Betty over the phone to put him through to Jonah. A few seconds later, Jonah picks up, asking, "What is it? What do you want?" Urich says that he's got a big one, Jonah. "This is a Pulitzer material. It's gonna blow the whole damn town apart." Jonah tells him that he doesn't have time for games. What's the story? So Urich puts his glass down, stating that the Goblin, "I can get you the Goblin." Jonah asks him, "Are you serious?" And Urich tells him, "I am dead serious. I have it all. Names, dates, photographs. I can put him in the frame for dozens of murders all over New York." And Jonah asks, "Where are you?" Urich tells him that he's in his apartment, and Jonah tells him, "If you really have what you say, you cannot be on the street with that. Just stay there, I'll be right over." Urich looks up at his defeated self in the mirror, stating, "Yeah, they're gonna make him weep." He hangs up and he holds his glass, telling himself that he's doing the right thing. Tonight, he's burying the spider. He's taking back his life. After a while, there's a knock at Urich's door, and as Urich opens it, he sees a gun pointed right at him, and it goes off. Also at this time, back at Peter's apartment, he goes through Uncle Ben's old war chest. He takes out his old uniform, and he begins to stitch together a mask. Thinking about what his uncle used to say, even though he was awarded medals, he never felt like a hero. He hid his uniform because he was ashamed of it, because the war that he fought was not just. Peter grabs one last thing from the trunk, Uncle Ben's old gun, and over at Urich's apartment, Jonah picks up the phone, stating it's done. The spider is dead. But at that exact moment, Peter is standing on the rooftop, stating, "This is it, Goblin. Here comes the Spider-Man!" And there you have it, the origins of Spider-Man Noir. Now, don't forget to subscribe, as we will be getting to the conclusion of this story very, very soon. But to just elaborate on what I opened this video with, our Spider-Man Weeb Weekend. You see, what we're going to do is, if you engage in this video and talk in the comments down below, then we're going to find the most engaging individual, someone who helped all the people who wanted to know about all the Spider-Man stuff. So you can help them out, and we're going to find somebody and send you a message directly to your YouTube as quick as possible. And we're going to basically send you PlayStation cash so you can buy a copy of the game or something else on PlayStation. Or when you're watching this, the time it went live, you could go over to our Twitch, twitch.tv/EligibleMonster, as we're giving away stuff every hour. That's what's going on for Web Weekend, guys. I hope to see you involved. I will see you around. Don't forget to subscribe.